Welcome to the Game Changers Podcast, your connection to the world's most powerful influencers in leadership, personal development, and entrepreneurship. Here's your host, professional athlete, author, speaker, and game changer himself, Rennie Curran. It's time to get your head in the game.
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? This is Rennie Curran, and thank you so much for joining me for my first ever podcast. This has been something that's been long in the works. I've had many thoughts on whether to do this or not, because for most of y'all who know me and who don't know me, I come from the background of being a professional athlete, which, you know, when you're not from this world of being on radio, it can be tough. It can be a major leap of faith. But at the same time, I never want to ever allow anything, especially not fear, hold me back from sharing my thoughts on the world. I've had many interviews, of course, during my career of being an athlete, and many people know my story, but never from my perspective. And so a lot of times, you know, you can get this perspective on what an athlete is or who he should be and if he should speak up or not on certain topics. And I want to make sure that I put my thoughts, my story out there. And so, you know, what I want to start by just listing out, you know, what is the goal of this podcast? Why is it even called Game Changers Podcast? And number one, the first thing that came to my mind as I came up with the concept of being a game changer, I want to really spread, number one, inspiration, number two, education, and lastly, empowerment. And those are some things that I really believe in, things that I stand for, things that I really believe will change the environment and change my community and the different people around me. So as I thought about, you know, why I should put together this podcast and why I should do this, those were the main things that I thought about. And then when I think back on my career, on my life, I'm 28 years old now. I was so blessed to have some amazing experiences. You know, I was a guy who went from being just a child with a dream to through many years of hard work, dedication, and just many people helping me becoming a professional athlete. And not too many people can say that. You know, you're talking about 0.08% that actually go from that child who's raising his hand and is excited and saying, oh, I want to be a professional athlete, to actually doing it. I mean, it's amazing when I think back on the amount of experiences that came my way, but I would have never made it that far and continue to strive and do the things that I do if it weren't for the mentors and the different people who came into my life. So I've made some amazing relationships throughout my career, people from all types of industries. But a lot of times, like, I didn't get a chance to really dive deep into their story and to hear how they were able to, you know, go from having a dream or a concept and getting that leadership position or climbing that corporate ladder, or just a lot of the same principles that I learned on the field. So a lot of what I want to do in this podcast is to really examine and to just look at the different people in my network and some people out of my network who are doing some amazing things. And they don't have to necessarily in society be super successful. You know, I'm not all about that. I believe in being relatable to the everyday person. So I want to find that person who's just, you know, maybe trying to start a nonprofit, or that person who's in the sports and entertainment industry who's just starting out and really learning just what they feel like sets them apart. So as I think back to who's in my network, I think about, of course, people in the sports and entertainment industry, different athletes, singers, you know, producers. There's so many people that I know in that industry, and athletes. I always say, like, athletes and musicians, we're one and the same. Actors, one and the same. If you look at just how many people actually make it in those industries and how many people are trying to get there, I mean, it's the same statistics. You're looking at 0.08% from those who actually go from that child and saying, I want to do this, to actually making it happen. So definitely going to be bringing on some people in the sports and entertainment industry. The next thing, I love just people who are running nonprofits. So I have a lot of background when it comes to that. I was a Boys and Girls Club kid. You know, been involved with a lot of different nonprofits throughout my career. MAP International, you know, the Cancer Foundation, so many as I just think back, ALS. So I would love to just bring on people. If you know anybody too that's involved in the nonprofit sector, I know them personally, but I'd love to hear about just things that people are doing, not necessarily just for the money, but just from their heart. Who are really really passionate about just changing the world in their own little way for whatever they believe in. Next thing is just in the corporate sector. I've met so many people, whether it may be sponsors or just people who I come across who are in the corporate sector that maybe work for like here in Atlanta, Chick-fil-A. I know a lot of the executives from Chick-fil-A and have gotten a chance to talk to a lot of them about what they do as far as marketing, leadership. I mean, when you think about just customer service and sustained success, there's no better example in the corporate field than Chick-fil-A and how they do things as an organization, the culture that they built. So definitely going to be bringing on some of my colleagues from there. We got Zaxby's out here. Love Zaxby's chicken. So, I'll be interviewing some people from there. Hopefully Merrill Lynch. I mean, there's so many corporate companies and individuals who have amazing leadership abilities and who are trying to be game changers within their organizations that I will be bringing on. I mean, in the health and wellness industry, talk about trainers, nutritionists, different people who have impacted me, chiropractors, people who know really, really on top of the games and really are impacting lives. Those are the type of people who I want to bring on. Even industries that you may not even think about, beauty and cosmetology. I have my sister does hair, and that's one of the things you don't think about is how they're even game changers in their own right. A lot of times your appearance and things like that, that's a lot, has a major part to play in your personal brand and how people receive you, and believe it or not, the opportunities that you get. So I will be bringing on people in that industry and well, and a lot of topics we'll be discussing on this podcast. And sorry, guys, if you're a football fan and you thought this was going to be all about football, but it's about so much more than football. I really believe in developing the person first, and if you can take care of developing that person, everything else will follow. So it doesn't matter if it's football, speaking, music, whatever it is, you're going to thrive if you can take care of yourself personally and continue to develop yourself as a person. So a lot of topics we'll be talking about on the Game Changers podcast is leadership, perseverance, personal branding, understated excellence. Some people call it having an executive presence. I call it understated excellence, and I'm going to talk about that more in another podcast episode. We're going to be talking about all these individuals who we bring on. We'll get to know like what their defining moments were that really set them apart. Next thing is operating your vision, discipline, self-motivation. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, change management. So many things that I feel like really apply to the everyday person who's really, really trying to do some great things, who's not just trying to survive out here, because it can be easy to just go through the motions of life and get stuck in that rat race. So I want to really talk about different things that just kind of transcend and will really help you get to the next level and help you become a game changer. And so next thing is I want to know your thoughts. As you listen to this podcast, I don't want it to just be about me or what I feel like is important to the world. I really want to hear from you as a listener. So feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Rennie Curran, RennieCurran, on Twitter at Rennie Curran 53, on my Facebook. I would love to hear your thoughts on, the music, and the introduction. It can be as small as that. The topics that I just described. What other topics would you like to hear as well, besides the ones that I just mentioned? Any other ideas that you would like to hear? And even if you think it sucks, if you think this concept sucks and you want to hear something completely different, you want to hear more about football, I'm cool with hearing that too. Football is always going to be a part of my life and sports as a whole. So if you want me to give my input on how I feel the Bulldogs are going to do this year, I know I'll probably have a lot of Georgia Bulldog fans listening in. So let me know. I'd love to hear that feedback. And now I just want to tell you a little bit about my story. Some of you may know my story, some of you may not. But for me, I was a kid who grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Spent my early days kind of in the metro Atlanta area around Northview Hills, Beaufort Highway, which is where I just developed the love for the game. Started playing football, just kind of backyard football, 10 years old. Went to Boys and Girls Club, so I developed a lot of skill sets there, learned a lot about my life, and was trying to find out my identity at that time. I was around 10 years old, 8 to 10 years old, when I started being real in tune with pop culture. So I started paying more attention to the Michael Jordans, Michael Jackson, even watching Power Rangers and all these different shows. And so I was really developing my identity at that time. And about when I was 10, 11 years old is when we moved out to Gwinnett County, which is about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from Atlanta. That's when I started playing organized football and got into the Brookwood High School cluster, met my Little League coach, who would basically become like a second father to me. Both my parents were Liberian immigrants who came to this country in the 80s. My mom came to get her on scholarship to get her master's from Emory for nursing, and that's how she ended up in Atlanta. It was between Duke and Emory, and she chose Emory. And then after she was finished getting her master's degree, my father came. He bought into a shoe repair franchise called Hackey Shoe Repair, and his business was based out in Kennesaw at Town Center Mall. So he worked there countless hours. 12 hours a day. And so a lot of times I didn't really get to see him much because he was just on that grind. He was an entrepreneur. This is a guy who worked, like I said, as the manager. He was the customer service guy, even though that wasn't his best role. I saw him cuss a lot of people out. But he did every single role, did the accounting, did operations, everything. And so got an early chance to see what entrepreneurship looked like through him, and just hard work and just the dedication that it took. And through both my parents, they were able to do so much for my family. During this time when I was born and throughout my childhood, there was a civil war taking place in Liberia, their home country. So a lot of the resources and the things that they made, they split it in half. Whether it's money, food, clothes, they split it all in half and sent it back home, helped a lot of my family come to America and get their citizenship, get their green card. So I really had to learn at an early age just about being selfless and being able to really just give, to those who you love, and to not just think about yourself, but to think about others. And that's something that translated for me onto the field as I got into my football career. I was a kid that always tried to just fight for the man next to me, for my teammates. We had a strong bond. My Little League team, we through 7 years old to seventh grade, we lost like 6 games. So we were like 61-6, I believe, was our record. But you talk about just special moments and just memories that will last a lifetime, and relationships that will last a lifetime. That's what we did as a team, as a Little League team. And as I got into middle school and high school, that's when things started changing. Got a lot more competitive. Politics started kicking in. Just a lot of things took over, and I was actually playing running back throughout my whole career. Got moved to linebacker. I was frustrated. I was like about to quit. I remember just going in, talking to my Little League coach, like, Coach, I'm not really getting along with my 9th grade coach, and I'm thinking about quitting, man. And he told me something that I'll never forget. He told me something that I still live by to this day. He said, Rennie, I want you to focus on what you can control. And those words have always stuck with me. Don't focus on, the things that are out of your control, that person who may be getting on your nerves, that problem that you may have that you have no control over, or that situation where somebody's not paying attention to you, or you're getting rejected over and over. Pay attention and focus on what you can control. So your attitude, your effort, your daily mindset, all those things are things that you can control. And those are the things that you should focus on. So as I did that, and as I started to develop that mentality of just focusing and working hard on the things that I can control, my character, my leadership abilities, things really, really changed for me. Really, really changed for me. And I ended up that year going from, being that guy who was third string on the depth chart and, getting in that linebacker, to actually going to varsity after my freshman year, which never happened at my high school. We were a powerhouse high school in Georgia. It was Brookwood and Parkview. And so, went to the varsity, was able to get an opportunity after like my 5th game as a sophomore. And that's when things really, really took off for me, and got into the recruiting process. And that's when I started hearing about my height. As I said, I played linebacker, and prototypical height for a linebacker is around 6 foot to 6'3", 6'4". And so by this time, my sophomore year, junior year of high school, I started hearing, the undersized linebacker. It started to be labeled as that. And once again, I had the choice. I could either focus on, what the experts were saying about me and allow that to determine the trajectory that I had for my life, or I could focus on what I can control. So at that point, got in the weight room, killed myself. I mean, really, really sacrificed. Got with the top trainers, some of whom my Little League coach put me with, a guy by the name of Chip Smith, a guy by the name by Ryan Golden, another guy, George Herring. Everybody calls him Body by George. So many trainers that I got with, Art Harris as well. And just really dedicated myself to developing myself physically. Of course, school and education was there, but my mindset was that I have to do everything that I can to set myself apart as an athlete. And I did whatever it took, man. Like after school, I'm in the weight room 3 hours, 3 hours, no less, just sacrificing. By the time I left high school, I was benching about 425, squatting 515, cleaning. My clean record still stands to this day, about 320. And I was a kid who wasn't the biggest. I was about 5'10" and a half at that time, 215, 220. So that's the type of dedication that I put into what I did. And of course, I was blessed with amazing strength and ability, but I really tried to do everything that I could to maximize it. So by my junior year, I was able to get that scholarship to go to my dream school, which was University of Georgia. And once again, that changed my whole entire life, man, just being up there. I was a kid who, my sophomore year, I was going up there every weekend, or every day pretty much. My Little League coach would check me out of school, and we go up there. I'd be in the film room, and the older guys would be making fun of me and, like just saying, oh, man, aren't you supposed to be in school right now, dude? And I'll just be smiling, man. I'll be on cloud nine, just happy to be at the university, just being around my vision. That's one thing I'm going to talk a lot about, is when you have a vision and you want to achieve something in life, just immersing yourself in that vision, being around it, even if people look at you like you're crazy. So whatever job you want, whatever house you want, if it's a job, like just going up to that job site and seeing it and introducing yourself, even if they don't even have a job opportunity, shaking their hands, meeting the boss, just saying, hey, I'm so-and-so and I love to work here, and just placing yourself in the environment. If it's a house that you want, driving around that neighborhood, even if people look at you like you're crazy, if you want a car, whatever it is, go to that dealership, ask them to test drive. Hey, they may say no, but once again, for you just seeing it and being around it, it'll bring you that much closer to whatever your vision is. So that's some of what I did my sophomore year that I feel like really led me to being in the right place and staying in the right path. Because when times got hard, I could think back to my vision. I could think back to how I felt, when I was around the University of Georgia and I was around the guys and being around practice and just seeing the fact that, man, I'm not that far off. I'm not that far removed from actually making this thing happen. So as I got to University of Georgia, things were tough. As a freshman, that's one thing that I'm very passionate about is student athletes. As they come on these campuses, how are they developing mentally? The first thing I had to do was just come to the realization that everything I had accomplished in high school, like I had to put that out the window. I had to humble myself. I had to redefine my brand. I had to get to the point where I wasn't looking around the locker room and worrying about who's around me and where I was on the depth chart, because once you do that, man, once you compare and analyze and you're so focused on, is this person better than me? Is that person gonna, be better than me today, or is he taller than me? Whatever it is, once you focus on those things, it removes the focus on the skills and the talents and the abilities that you have, and it really limits you in your thinking. You're gonna be more prone to have self-doubt. So the first thing I had to do was just accept my identity, accept who I was, accept the fact that I'm not the biggest linebacker, accept the fact that also too I have skills that other people don't have. And so once I looked around the locker room and just accepted that and humbled myself and kept quiet and went to work, a lot of things changed for me. And that still didn't mean things just came together. I didn't play my freshman year. I didn't redshirt. But at the same time, I didn't play until the 6th, 7th game of the season. And until that time came, until my opportunity or my defining moment came, I really had to dedicate myself and believe and operate in my vision. So if I wanted to be a starter, I had to operate in that. So if you saw the freshman Rennie Curran at University of Georgia, you will see a kid who was 5 steps behind the starter, who was mimicking his every move, who was looking crazy, who was in the film room, in the weight room by himself, who was just grinding and believing. So before the coaches even believed that I could play as a freshman, I believed it already, and I dedicated myself to that. And it was a struggle. A lot of people don't know just how tough it is to be a student athlete, a collegiate student athlete. I'm going to talk about that a lot, just that whole entire life, the schedule that you're under, the pressure that you're under, being on a pedestal, on a platform that a lot of people, when they're looking on the outside looking in, they feel like you should maintain this certain standard and this certain level of, conduct, but they don't realize you're just an 18-year-old kid a lot of times. So people don't take that into account when you make mistakes and when things go wrong. And so that was some of the pressures and the things that I had to deal with as a collegiate student athlete before I could really adjust to thriving on the field. And so about, like I said, the 7th game of the season, finally got an opportunity. The guy ahead of me made one mistake, and that's all it took. I got on the field, made some plays, and really capitalized on the opportunity that came. And the crazy thing about opportunities, a lot of times they come wrapped in opposition, and you won't see them coming. That game that we played in, that I got my first opportunity, we were down by like 3 touchdowns, playing Tennessee. I remember it like it was yesterday. The game was over. And that's when I got my opportunity, when things were in complete chaos. But I was ready. I was ready mentally. I was ready physically. And I took advantage of it. A couple games after that, we played Florida, made some big plays in that game. That's when Tim Tebow was playing. We ran on the field against them. It was in 2007. And it just led to so many other amazing experiences. We had the blackout game, which is one of my favorite games in my career, against Auburn. That was my 19th birthday. So you talk about just how young I was and just the mentality that I was in. It's crazy. So as my college career progressed, I just continued to focus on improving. That's one thing that really helped me, is I never got complacent. I never felt like I arrived. I was always looking for the next best opportunity, the next progression in my physical ability, in my mental ability, understanding the game, and just how I could become the best version of myself. Fast forward to my junior year, my daughter had been born. I had her with my high school sweetheart. Family was struggling tremendously. My father had lost his business. So many things that happened that made me consider leaving early. And so when the opportunity came, I turned my papers into the NFL. They have like an advisement committee that lets you know after your junior year where you kind of stand, where your stock is. Got my grades back, had a great grade, 3rd, 4th round grade, which I knew at this time I'm a 3-time All-American. I just come off leading the SEC in tackles. I know my stock wasn't going to go much higher than that, with my height and the things that were considered negatives, that I had basically reached the ceiling of my potential. So I decided to make the leap into the NFL, and everything changed at that point. Became a business. At this point, I had to choose my agent, I had to choose financial advisor. I had to really think about, preparing for this major interview. That's a 2-month, 4-month long process. Most people just think about the combine and those things, but it's really a long, long process. And as most of you have seen the combine just come up, that's why a lot of guys, shed tears. That's why there's so much emotion, because it's how many things you have to go through just to get to that point of hearing your name called, which, by the way, you have no idea where you're going. So I went through the combine. The combine was amazingly stressful process, just even the preparation. You're talking about 2 months of just waking up every day, eat, sleep, crap, football for 2 straight months to get to one day, a series of 3 days where you had the chance to showcase yourself to these teams. So for these 2 straight months, you're trying to get to the optimal level of who you are as an athlete. So from your strength and conditioning training, your speed and agility, all those things, your knowledge of the game, you understand and know that you're going to be tested on all these things. So it's really a strenuous process where every day you have to be very, very intentional. Everything is planned out. Everything is laid out as far as how you're going to spend your days to just improve and be at the best level, because this is your chance to become part of the 0.08%, like I said before, that actually get to hear their name called. So after those 2 months, get to the combine, The first day we go through medical training, which is a whole entire long process. If you want to hear more about what the draft process is like, I can definitely do a whole podcast just letting you know the whole process and letting you know the intricacies of it, the testing that they put you through, what it's like to be in an interview with the NFL team. Just message me on that. But went through the combine process. I actually, in my first 40-yard run, pulled my hamstring, which was so devastating. Just imagine training or preparing for something for 2 months and then getting there and then you flop, or not even making it to the main part of your interview because you had a flat tire and you've been training for this or preparing for this for 2 months. That's what it felt like. And so after that whole process, I came back home and I had to just hit the ground running. Got in the hyperbaric chamber, got microcurrent machines, so many things that I didn't even know about when I was in college to just speed up recovery, to just heal my hamstring that I had pulled, to make it in like 2.5 weeks for my pro day. And so luckily I was able to get recovered for pro day, ran like a 4.6, 4.7, 40, good enough to get me drafted, as high as I wanted to go, where I thought I was going to go. And even after that, I had to do the team visits. I had to really, just like any business, do an interview and showcase my abilities. So I ended up being drafted 3rd round to the Tennessee Titans with Jeff Fisher and his staff. That's when Vince Young was playing with them. First year went pretty well. We had a losing season though, so that was really tough to to experience. And just even being there, you realize after you go through your first training camp, just how rare it is. When you go through your first training camp, it's over 100 guys, and eventually they cut it down to that 53-man roster, and you see guys get cut that good and well, good enough to play. And that's one of the toughest things about the NFL is starting to understand the business side, the politics, just all the things that you can't control. And still being okay with that, and still pushing forward, and still trying to maintain that love that you have for the game. That's one of the toughest things. And so after my first season, the lockout happens, coaching staff gets fired, and so I go in thinking that I'm going to be the next man up. And all of a sudden, new coaching staff, draft comes up. They draft 2 new linebackers. They bring another one in through free agency. Everything changes, and I end up doing well training camp, but still end up getting cut, which was hardest thing for me to understand. And it's one thing if you get cut and it's like, oh, you need to work on this, to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And unfortunately, I didn't hear any of that. It's just like, keep working hard, which kills me. It's like just sending somebody off with nothing really to improve on or no constructive criticism. So at that point, went back home. I became a free agent and kept working hard. It was about 6 to 8 weeks before I ever got a call and to do a workout, which was from the Carolina Panthers. Worked out with them, but because I didn't have practice squad eligibility, they passed up on me for the next best guy. And the way practice squad works is if you play or you're active in more than 8 or 9 games, then you lose that practice squad eligibility. And so for me, I played in exactly 8 games my rookie season. So I had just hit the mark of what it took to lose practice squad eligibility. So that was a really tough pill to swallow, but eventually ended up getting signed to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was after they had fired Raheem Morris. Greg Schiano came in. Gotta admit, wasn't my best career move. One of the tough experiences of my life. A lot of politics, and ended up I was starting the whole offseason. They ended up drafting Levante David, amazing player, been a Pro Bowl. I don't know how many times. I'm definitely going to have to get him on here to hear his perspective on just his career and everything. But, yeah, we're starting the whole offseason. Levante Davis brought in 2nd round. Great player. After that, things just kind of go out the window for me. And so I ended up, after that experience, going up to Canada, playing with the Edmonton Eskimos, playing with the BC Lions. And during this whole time that I'm bouncing around, I'm thinking about how can I expand my brand? How can I not just be an athlete? How can I not just depend on the game check? And so that's when I decided to become an author, wrote my first book entitled Free Agent, The Perspectives of a Young African-American Athlete. Just released the 2nd edition of that book. So it's Free Agent. And the subtitle now is Overcoming Adversity in Times of Transition. And so I wrote that book, and it was really just about how we all go through times of transition, how we all are considered free agents at some point in life. And so It was a book that really got me through the time that I was at as a free agent, helped me realize that I'm not the only one who's going through transition. I'm not the only one going through times of struggle, times of change. I thought about that person who's in college, who's just got that degree, has a ton of student loans, and is not getting that job that they want. They're turning their resume, and they're getting passed up on from a kid from another school. I thought about that person who's running their business and not meeting that sales bottom line that they want, and they're about to lose their business. They're going through times of adversity. I thought about that person who in their relationships, who's put so much time, so much effort into the relationship, and then all of a sudden comes to an end, and they're just like, man, what happened? That person that they love became a stranger overnight. I thought about those people. So many different scenarios where it's like you facing adversity, feeling lost, you're going through times of transition. So that's what the book is really about, and it's available on any online retailer you can think of. iTunes. I did the audio book, so it's on Audible, Barnes and Nobles, on Amazon. So yeah, it was a very, very fulfilling process that I did during my career as a football player that helped me expand my brand, helped me to sustain myself as well financially, and then which also uh, gave me the opportunity to become a speaker, and get into public speaking, which has really, really changed my life. Just being able to impact people and being able to speak life to them, whether it's a business, school, association, having the opportunity to do that gave my life a whole new meaning. And recently, as well, I was finishing school. So, like I said, I left early as a junior, decided to forgo my senior season. So, starting 2013 is when I started going back to school, working on my degree, and really just trying to make strides to finish. And it was one of the toughest things. Just imagine leaving school, getting a nice paying job, and then having to go sit back in the classroom. It was tough. It took a lot of humility, a lot of courage, and I really commend those people, especially those who haven't been in school in like 20 years and go back. And for me, I promised my mom. She actually made me sign a contract so that I would promise to finish my degree. And yeah, I was able to complete that just recently, about a week ago. It was May 5th was the commencement ceremony, and I graduated with my general business degree from Terry. Even though I had tons of business experience by then, I was hoping they'll give me some credit to shorten up the time. But yeah, it was one of the best feelings in the world. And so that leads me to where I'm at now. And so for me, I'm living out my passions. I'm doing what I love to do. I am a public speaker. I am a life and business coach. I'm an author. And then also I do a little bit of training as well. So for those guys who are looking to better themselves as athletes, and then also who are looking to get ready for the draft, I do a lot of that as well. And then besides that, I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm involved in a lot of different businesses. One of them being a sports startup called Sport Chirp, which is going to be like the Glassdoor or like a Yelp for sports, providing reviews on athletes, coaches, and organizations from every sport, every level. So like I said, it's going to be like a Yelp or like a Glassdoor for sports. And it's up now if you want to check it out, sportchirp.com. And then besides that, I'm a brand ambassador with Con Bars. They are a company that aligns a lot with my values. And so was able to get connected with them through a mutual friend who actually went to University of Georgia as well. So they support me on a lot of the speaking that I do, a lot of the events that I do, providing products, providing support to me. So shout out to Con Bars. And I'll be doing some giveaways too if any of you guys like Con Bars. I love them. They're really, really good. Not just saying that because I'm a brand ambassador. But yeah, those are some of the things that I do. And let's see. Next thing is, why do I consider myself a game changer? The biggest reason why I consider myself a game changer is because I understand the influence that I have, that I stand for something, that that I'm not just an athlete, that I'm not just a speaker, I'm not just a title, but I'm an influencer. So when somebody sees me, they have the chance to be inspired by me. They have the chance to, I have the chance to change the trajectory of their whole entire life. And so that's why I believe I'm a game changer. And I believe in standing for something. I believe in standing for perseverance, for resilience. I believe in being a spokesperson for those underdogs, those who feel counted out, those who feel like they've been doubted. That's what I represent as a game changer. And my whole career as an athlete and where I'm at now, it represents that. It represents exactly that. And so as I'm talking about being a game changer, and as I bring on different people who I believe are game changers as well, I want you to think about that in your own life. How are you a game changer? How is the world going to change by you doing what you do, by you living out your dreams, by you standing up for what you believe in? How are you making an impact on this world? That's something I really, really believe in, that everybody should try to figure out, is what their purpose is, why they're a game changer, how they're changing their industry, those around them, how they're changing their family, how they're doing more. And that really just brings me to the end of the show. Thank you all so much for listening to my first podcast. And I'm really, really excited about this opportunity. Can't wait to just bring on the different people who I have gotten a chance to know over the years, who have an amazing influence in their industry and doing some great things personally as well. And my challenge is for you to just give me some feedback through my Instagram, through my Twitter, through my Facebook. Let me know of any suggestions that you have. Let me know also of any guests that you think would be great to have on the show, and any other thoughts that you have. I'm an open book, and I look forward to hearing from you. And last thing I want to leave with you is just remember to not just walk through this life simply just trying to exist, or simply just trying to survive or go through this rat race. I want you to focus on being a game changer. Thank you.